The Errol Flynn mystery is finally solved. It's not good news. Errol Flynn was born with the name Errol Leslie Thompson Flynn on June 29, 1909 in Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. Flynn's dad was Theodore Thompson Flynn, who was a well-known sea biologist and teacher, and his mom was Lily Mary Young, a woman from a rich family. From when he was little, Errol showed how he liked to rebel and wanted adventure. This would shape his whole life, both at work and at home. He got kicked out of many schools for different bad things he did, like fighting, stealing, and chasing girls. This showed how wild he would be later when he became famous in Hollywood. Even though he had trouble in school, Flynn was very smart and had a natural charm that made people like him. He was both interesting and mysterious. Before he became an actor, Flynn lived a very exciting life. He worked as someone who grew tobacco in New Guinea, someone who looked for gold, a fisherman, and even a patrol officer. These experiences gave him the tough energy he later used in movies. His good looks and strong body made him perfect for action movies. In the early 1930s, Hester did acting, first working in British movies before getting noticed by Warner Brothers in Hollywood. Flynn's big break came in 1935 with Captain Blood, a fancy Puritan movie that made him famous almost overnight. He worked with beautiful Olivia de Havilland, who would become his frequent movie partner, and Simeon he had a crush on in real life. Flynn amused audiences with his cool acting wrongly blamed doctor who became a purveyor. The movie's success with audiences and critics made him a major box office star and the ultimate screen hero. His perfect sword fighting, athletic skills, and classy behavior made him ideal for the romantic, daring main characters that define Thagner. After Captain Blood, Flynn starred in many blockbuster hits that shaped 1930s and 1940s adventure movies, including The Charge of the Light Brigade, 1936, The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, and The Seahawk, 1940. As Robin Hood, Flynn was the best. A green-dressed outlaw with a don't-carry attitude and a moral code that made him a lasting symbol of justice and bravery. His chemistry with Olivia de Havilland was electric, and her on-screen partnership remains one of the most loved in movie history. While Flynn's movie career did well, his personal life was often crazy, known for his fancy lifestyle. Flynn became known for going overboard, fancy parties, traveling around the world, sailing on his favorite yacht, Zaka, and an endless parade of romantic adventures. He was often in the gossip magazines and frequently got into trouble, most famously during the 1942 statutory rape trial in which he was eventually found not guilty. Though the trial hurt his public image, it also made the phrase, "in like Flynn," popular in American slang, showing both his bad reputation and high-end noble appeal. Despite his personal controversies, Flynn remained a talented and compelling performer. He tried to break away from being typecast by taking on more serious roles in films like They Died with Their Boots, on 1941, and Objective Burma, 1945, where he played real-life military people with gritty realism. However, his later years were marked by getting worse health due to drinking too much alcohol and years of hard living. His youthful energy faded, and by the 1950s, his once celebrity screen presence had given way to a tired, more thoughtful actor. Flynn's final films, such as The Sun Also Rises, 1957, and Too Much Too Soon, 1958, showed a man dealing with the hard parts of getting older and regret. He gave a surprisingly self-aware performance as his friend, the troubled actor John Barrymore, in Too Much Too Soon, offering a look into his honor struggle. Though no longer the Mazzini idol of yesterday, Flynn's talent remained undeniable, and his contributions to movies continued to be appreciated. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling Hollywood icon known for his dashing on-screen personality, lived a complex and colorful personal life marked by 3 marriages and several children. Each relationship taped. His legacy in deeply personal ways. His first marriage was to French-born actress Lily Demita, a glamorous and fiery presence in her own right, whom he married in 1935. Their union, marked by passion and trouble, was frequently the subject of gossip magazines throughout Hollywood. Despite their marriage problems, the couple had one child together, a son, Sean Flynn. Born in 1941, the marriage ended in divorce in 1942 after years of public fights and private troubles. But the bond they shared through Sean would remain important in Flynn's later life, especially as Sean grew up to pursue a career as adventurous as his father's. Flynn's second marriage began in 1943 when he married Nora Eddington, a young woman who had worked at the courthouse during Flynn's controversial and highly publicized statutory rape trial, in which was ultimately found not guilty. Eddington, then only 19, brought a sense of Calman's home life to Flynn's crazy life, and their marriage lasted until 1949. During their 6 years together, the couple welcomed two daughters, Deirdre, born in 1945, and Rory, born in 1947. Although their marriage ended in divorce, Flynn kept a connection with his daughters, particularly Rory, whose family line would extend the Flynn legacy into the 21st century. In 1950, Flynn married for the third and final time. His bride was Patrice Wymore, a young and talented actress and singer who co-starred with him in the film Rocky Mountain. Despite a big age difference, Flynn was 41 and Wymore just 24. The couple shared a strong connection based on mutual respect and admiration. Their marriage, which lasted until Flynn's death in 1959, produced own daughter, Arnella Roma Flynn, born in 1953. Unlike Flynn's earlier marriages, though he was noted for being relatively listable, especially in his final years, he began to distance himself from the crazy pace of Hollywood. Tragically, Arnella died young in 1998 at the age of 44, adding another sad note to the Flynn family story. Flynn's family line continues today through his daughter Rory, whose son Sean Flynn, named after his uncle, pursued a career in entertainment as well. This younger Sean Flynn became known for his role in the popular Nickelodeon television series Zoey 101, where he played the character Chase Matthews. In this way, Errol Flynn's legacy extended not only through his legendary screen performances, but also through a new generation of actors bearing his name and spirit. In the early 1950s, tired of the spotlight and disappointed with the changing tides of the film industry, Flynn began to pull back from Hollywood. He and Patrice Wymore moved to Port Antonio, Jamaica, where they built a peaceful and luxurious retreat far from the prying eyes of Thepris. Flynn quickly fell in love with Caribbean lifestyle and the Jamaican people. He bought an estate, Navy Island, and for a time ran a hotel there, offering visitors a glimpse into his world of tropical elegance and adventure. Flynn became an early and enthusiastic promoter of Jamaican tourism, bringing internationalization to Port Antonio, which had been largely overlooked as a travel destination. One of his lasting contributions was making popular river trips on bamboo rafts, now a hallmark of Jamaican tourism. His love for the island and its people was sincere and lasting. And even after his death, Flynn remained a beloved figure in the region. Among the most tragic elements of Flynn's legacies, the story of his only son, Sean Flynn, a strikingly handsome young man who inherited his father's adventurous streak and matinee idol looks. Scene initially followed in Errol's footsteps, appearing in a handful of films in the 1960s. However, younger Flynn's son grew tired of acting and found a deeper calling as a war photographer and journalist. Drawn to the front lines of danger and history, Sean began working as a freelance photojournalist in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War, a region torn apart by violent conflict and political struggle. In April 1970, while working on a Sind 4. Time magazine alongside fellow journalist Dana Stone. Sean ventured into Cambodia, where the Vietnam War had spilled across borders. The two were last seen riding motorcycles toward a region known to be controlled by Khmer's insurgents. Neither Sean nor Dana was ever heard from again. Despite exhaustive searches and investigations, their bodies were never recovered. Over years, numerous theories and unconfirmed sightings fueled hope and speculation. But the prevailing belief is that both men were captured and executed by the Khmer Rouge sometime in 1970 or 1971. Sean's disappearance devastated his family, particularly his mother, Lily Demita, who spent over a decade and a considerable portion of her fortune trying to find him. She hired private investigators, followed leads, and petitioned governments in a desperate attempt to learn the truth. In 1984, after years of uncertainty, Sean Flynn was officially declared dead. His life and tragic fate have since become the subject of numerous documentaries and books, most notably Inherited Risk, Errol and Sean Flynn in Hollywood and Vietnam, which explores the parallel stories of father and son, both men chasing danger, driven by charisma, and ultimately haunted by the consequence of their choices. For decades, the legendary swashbuckling actor Errol Flynn has remained a larger-than-life figure whose dashing screen presence and crazy off-screen behavior made him a subject of fascination, controversy, and speculation. Behind his charming smile and action hero roles, there existed a darker, more complicated story that Hollywood worked hard to hide. Over the years, bits and pieces of disturbing allegations, rumors, and questionable relations surfaced, but no one could definitively say where the truth ended and where myth began. However, in recent years, thanks to the release of declassified government documents, newly found diaries, and testimonies from former acquaintances, a more disturbing picture of Flynn's private life has emerged, one that casts a long shadow over his once glamorous image. A Wassons whispered in hushed tones among industry insiders has now been backed up by hard evidence. Errol Flynn had associations that were far more problematic than the public ever knew. FBI files released under the Freedom of Information Act reveal that Flynn had long been under surveillance by the U.S. government due to his suspected ties with pro-fascist operatives during the 1930s and early 1940s, while many celebrities were investigated. During the McCarthy era for communist leanings, Flynn's case was different. His sympathies, according to documents, allegedly leaned toward Nazi Germany during World War II, a claim so disturbing it shook even the most die-hard fans of the actor. Adding to this already troubling revelation, biographer Charles Hyam in his controversial book, Errol Flynn, Then Told Story, 1980, claimed that Flynn was not only a Nazi sympathizer, but may have actively helped in intelligence activities on behalf of the Third Reich. These claims were for years dismissed as sensationalist guessing, but their recently backed up details in official archives have revived discussions around their truthfulness, although no formal charges were ever brought against Flynn. The suspicion surrounding him suggests a double life. A man who portrayed brave, freedom-loving heroes on screen while possibly harboring radically different beliefs in private. The darkness doesn't end there. Another disturbing chapter in the Flynn mystery involves Shu's relationships with underage girls. In 1942, Flynn was infamously charged with statutory rape involving two teenage girls, though he was ultimately found not guilty in a widely publicized trial. The proceedings revealed a side of Flynn's personal conduct that was reckless at best and predatory at worst. His wild lifestyle oft came under sharper scrutiny. Numerous sources from within Flynn's inner circle described a man who had little regard for boundaries, used heavily drugs and alcohol, and surrounded himself with young, often vulnerable women. Evan Thoss, who once admired him, began talking alleged that his charisma masked a troubling sense of entitlement and excess, In the final years of his life, Flynn's body showed the toll of his reckless living. His liver was severely damaged from years of heavy drinking, and his son's handsome features had grown bloated and worn out. He died in 1959 at just 50 years old. But the mystery of who Errol Flynn really was didn't die with him. Instead, it lingered, cloaked in denial and myth, waiting for the truth to catch up. Now, with greater transparency and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about Hollywood legends, we can finally see Flynn in full. Flawed, magnetic, destructive, and perhaps deeply compromised. The resolution to the Errol Flynn mystery isn't a feel-good story of misunderstood genius or wrongly accessed icon. It's a cautionary tale about the illusions of fame, the hidden rat beneath the glitz of the golden age, and the dangers of idolizing celebrities, withal examining the full scope of their lives. For many fans and historians, it's a sobering conclusion. The dashing rogue who thrilled audience with his swordplay and charm may have been playing a very different and far more sinister role behind the scenes. And now that curtain has finally come down. By the late 1950s, Errol Flynn's once glorious career and lavish lifestyle had been severely undermined by a combination of financial mismanagement, health problems, and personal excesses. By 1959, his money difficulties had reached a critical point. The man who had once been Hollywood's swashbuckling hero now found himself scrambling to settle debts and find sources of income. In a desperate bid to help his money troubles, Flynn made a significant trip on October 9, 1959, flying to Vancouver, British Columbia. His goal was to negotiate a deal to lease out his beloved yacht, the Zaka, a 1930s vessel that had been part of his adventurous age and mass and Tollywood charm. The businessman involved in this negotiation was George Caldow, a figure Flynn hoped would help him stabilize his dangerous finances. Accompanying Flynn on this trip was Beverly Odland, a young actress at just 17, whose relationship with Flynn was both controversial and emblematic of the actor's troubled later years. Their companionship on this trip symbolized a man far removed from the heroic image he once projected, tangled instead in scandal and decline. On October 14th, Caldow was driving Flynn and Odland to the airport for a flight back to Los Angeles. Flynn suddenly began experiencing terrible pain in his back and legs. This intense and alarming discomfort signaled something far worse brewing beneath the surface of his failing health. Recognizing how bad Flynn's condition was, Caldow quickly went to the home of Dr. Grant Gould. The doctor immediately noticed Flynn's difficulty with basic movement. The actor struggled to climb the stairs, a simple act that highlighted his physical deterioration. Dr. Gould suspected that Flynn's pain came from degenerative disc disease and spinal osteoarthritis, chronic conditions often made worse by years of heavy drinking, smoking, and aid-mending physical lifestyle. To relieve Flynn's suffering, Gould gave him an intravenous dose of 50 milligrams of dimorolpethidine, a powerful opioid painkiller. As the medication took effect, Flynn's agony lessened, allowing him a moment of temporary relief. During this brief break, Flynn began to reminisce at great length, recounting stories and memories from his adventurous past. A glimpse into the mind of a man clinging to the ghosts of his former glory. Despite his notorious reputation for indulgence, Flynn declined an alcoholic drink when it was offered to him, a rare moment of restraint. After the initial treatment, Dr. Gould gave Flynn a leg massage in the bedroom of the appartamento, further ease his discomfort, and advised him to rest before continuing his journey to Los Angeles. Flynn appeared to respond positively, assuring those around him that he felt ever so much better. However, this fragile improvement was tragically short-lived. Approximately 20 minutes later, Beverly Odland checked on Flynn and found him unresponsive. The severe pain replaced by a sudden and complete loss of consciousness. An urgent call to emergency services resulted in rapid medical intervention from Dr. Gould, followed by an ambulance transfer to Vancouver General Hospital. Despite these swift response and all available forts, Flynn never regained consciousness. Later that evening, he was pronounced dead. A sudden and shocking end to the life of one of Hollywood's muscle-gundary figures. The official coroner's report and Flynn's death certificate revealed the cause of death to be a myocardial infarction, more commonly known as a heart attack. This was caused by coronary thrombosis, a blockage of blood flow to the heart, coupled with coronary atherosclerosis, a chronic condition characterized by the hardening and narrowing of the arteries. These findings painted a grim picture of Flynn's health, which had been steadily worse due to years of heavy drinking, smoking, and physical strain. The report also noted significant fatty degeneration and partial cirrhosis of the liver conditions, indicative of severe liver damage often associated with chronic alcohol abuse. These liver issues were serious enough to be listed as contributing factors to his death. In a posthumous detail that added a layer of complexity to Flynn's personal life. Reports emerged that genital warts had been removed from the actor short-lived his death, a medical issue reflecting the private and some misconduct struggles he endured behind scenes.